Everyone, my name is Eric Bond, and I'm one of the co-founders at Hustle Fund, along with my other co-founder, Elizabeth Yin. Welcome to today's session, which is called Real Founders Pitch a VC. This is our most popular session every quarter, and we have some amazing founders to join us today. So growing up, one of my favorite shows in the early 90s was Unsolved Mysteries. I just loved hearing about stories about unexplained crimes and phenomena, and I even dreamed about one day becoming the host of the show myself. Well, it turns out that that day has finally arrived, but even better, because we are going to solve one of the biggest unsolved mysteries, which happens to be the VC black box, an industry that is notorious for not sharing authentic feedback to founders. Today, we're excited to welcome three great founders to pitch me and my co-founder, Elizabeth, live, and we'll provide some non-BS feedback, illuminating what VCs are actually thinking when they're reviewing a pitch. Let me go ahead and share the screen, and we can take a look at how this is all going to go down today. All right, so our agenda is pretty light. We're going to introduce ourselves, get right into the pitches, and then have a little bit of time for Q&A. Each founder is going to have 5 minutes to present, 5 minutes of critique from me and Elizabeth, and 5 minutes of open Q&A where they can field questions from you. So just a couple pieces of logistics about this. When we have if you have questions for our presenters or for us, please put them in the Q&A portion of this Zoom webinar, not the chat, although feel free to chat. You know, you can make fun of the fact that I'm actually presenting from you from a real bathroom. Who does that, right? Or that Elizabeth is sweating from her workout that she just had. Sorry to put you on the spot, Elizabeth. I just love making fun of you like a sister. Or you know, if anything else, you know, even better is to lift up these founders, right? They're the ones that are actually courageously coming in front of you to share their journeys. So give them big claps. And also for yourself, we'd love to hear what you're working on, where you're based. So feel free to chat that in as well. Okay, so next, what we want to do is make sure that we recognize some awesome team members that allow us to put together these sessions. We don't actually do any of our monthly webinars in an island at Hustle Fund. We get to do this work and share this information for you for free because we have some awesome sponsors. And I want to call out NetSuite. So NetSuite gives early stage companies the confidence to tackle the fundraising process head on. Startups are equipped with real-time financial visibility, KPIs, workflows, dashboards, and reports for the daily strategic planning, crucial to improving business performance and attracting investor interest. Not to mention, NetSuite's dedicated venture capital practice and extensive partner network provide a supportive infrastructure to help you manage everything from implementation to investor expectations so you can propel your business toward the ideal exit. NetSuite provides all this on a single cloud-based platform so you can access mission-critical data anytime, anywhere, even during your next pitch. Check out netsuite.com. At Hustle Fund, we have 280 companies across our funds 1 and 2. Many of them are very happy NetSuite clients. So encourage you to check out netsuite.com. Thank you so much for making today's session possible. This is us, me and Elizabeth. We've known each other for 21 years, fun fact. So we pretty much know everything about each other. Too much blackmail. We can never quit because, you know, we don't too much by each other. That's all you need to know is like we can blackmail each other. Okay, let's go ahead and get ready
Eric.
for, yeah.
Hey, Eric, one quick thing. Actually, I'm getting messages off to the side about how the Zoom link has apparently expired. I don't know if it's because we're at capacity, but I don't know if there's a way, maybe Hung, if we could retweet the new Zoom link or the Zoom link again. I don't know if people are looking at the right one or whatnot.
Okay, I'll send an email out.
Thank you so much.
All right. Well, we might have to have a smaller crowd today, but I guarantee you there's just going to be a lot of viewers today. Let's go ahead and get into the pitches. So this format is going to be very interesting. We have 5 minutes. I actually have a stopwatch here. So let's go ahead and get into this. So this is the order for today's session. We have Allison. She's going to be presenting guide. We have Alan from Sente. He's going to be presenting there. And then, of course, Audrey, who's going to be presenting Class Planet. All right. So let's go ahead and get going. And we're going to start with Allison. Allison, hello and welcome.
Hello. Hi. Thanks for having me.
Of course. Yeah. Great to have you here. Why don't we go ahead and hear your pitch? And this is going to be a bit unusual because your platform is actually the pitch.
That's right.
We're going to sit back, listen to the presentation that Allison has put together in Unique Platform, and get right into the critique and questions afterwards live with Allison. So let's go ahead, and I'm going to share Class Planets, and we'll share the sound. Okay.
As founders, we sometimes get lucky. We sit in the right seat, get a peek at the right things, meet the right people, and if we're paying attention, notice patterns that no one else sees. Of course, it doesn't always happen that way, but that's how Guy got started. A sprinkle of serendipity, luck, paying attention, and pattern recognition. Working as a consultant for the last 2 decades, I watch businesses and creators spend hours and days and weeks and millions of dollars making content that went largely unnoticed or dismissed. Yet the investment dollars publishing and sharing continued. Most formats in business look like the 1990s. Think about the PDF or the webinar that was invented in the 1980s. Right now, with all that's happening in the world, we can't take yet another long email or multi-page newsletter or webinar or tedious presentation or endless 100-page PDF. I'm Allison, the co-founder and CEO of Guide. What a better way to get to know Guide in this pitch than to listen to a guide? Okay, wait, what's a guide? This is a guide. It is audio plus an interactive content feed. You can make a guide in 3 easy steps. Record your voice, attach links, and share on social media, the web, or the Guide app. An audio guide can be 30 seconds or 30 minutes. It's the interactive content feed that's special, like you see here. We call these interactive cards or feed cards, and that is what creators attach to their audio content to engage the listener. Think of the last time you were listening to a podcast or watching a video and someone mentioned something and it was really hard to get back to it, or you wanted to buy that book that someone recommended. That's what this feed is for. Think for a moment the time it takes also to make a pitch deck, and the time it takes to review one for that matter. The hours of writing and graphics and refining the story and spell check, and then consider, what if you just recorded your voice on your phone, attached links, and shared the URL? Then would hear your voice, which contains nuances that no written text will ever provide. We make money by selling a recurring subscription to customers focused on content in areas like training and sales or marketing, onboarding, and communications. We've sold about $450,000 to date to big businesses like SC Johnson, TD Ameritrade, Cannes Lions, and also just small startups. And now we're in beta for our self-service platform that will launch in August, opening up to individual creators. We have 3 subscription tiers, free with limited guide making, Pro for $49 a month, and our business pricing starts at $499 a month with more advanced features and unlimited guide making. Our acquisition strategy is all about finding creators and businesses hungry for a better way to create and share engaging, beautiful content in a shorter amount of time with less hassle and, frankly, less money, and more metrics so that you know what someone likes, saves, or shares. We do this by activating use case specific communities. Guides can be made for almost anything, like how we use Squarespace to make any type of website, or Canva to design any creative asset. Here are a few metrics. Over 400 guides created, 11,000 total interactions with the screen while listening, a 76% completion rate. Average user session is about 5 minutes. The team has spent the last 20 years working on digital transformation and building big brand solutions in content, advertising, media, and technology. We understand the pain points of the business and creator. But mostly, we've worked the problem. We spent the last 18 months turning it over and over, talking to customers and shaping Guide into what it is today. Okay, now about the team. I'm a repeat founder, and so is Scott Prindle, co-founder and CTO. I've known and worked with Scott for over a decade. He built things like Nike ID, American Express Open Forum, and other notable platforms. We have an amazing team of 7 employees focused on marketing, tech, customer success, design, sales, working together to build a guide in minutes. And as we all know, it's not the bus, it's the passengers, it's the drivers. Now, it's time to go back to the live session and answer some questions and hopefully have a conversation. I hope you've enjoyed listening to this guide. Click on the screen to get in touch or sign up and start making guides for free by joining our beta. Thanks for inviting me.
All right. So big claps to Allison for Guide. Thank you so much for that super unique presentation.
I realized it was a risk.
Yeah,
to do
no,
it that
well,
way.
sometimes that's the big differentiator that makes sense. So what I'll do is I'm going to set the timer, and Elizabeth, maybe we can start by sharing some feedback with Allison. Do you want to go ahead and get started?
Well, sure. So thanks, Allison. I actually think that that kind of presentation works well given your product, because your product is in essence a presentation one. So that really painted a good picture for me around what this product is. Several questions come to mind. I think first off, really impressive revenue. My question is that from product revenue or from consulting, or where does that come from?
Yeah, so we started by selling to businesses last year. And so that's all business revenue. And now we're opening up to individual creators. So that revenue does not represent any individual creator revenue yet.
So I think what I was trying to figure out is, like at the business price, call it whatever, $500 per month. That means that you have, I don't know, not quite 1,000 business customers, or, oh no, I'm sorry, in a given year. So that comes out to like 5,000 or 6,000 a year. So you have, can't do the math right now, 70 customers?
No, so that 450 or a little bit over 450 represents the contracts that we wrote with businesses that are not reflected in the 499. So that's a new self-service price that we're launching in August. So those first contracts were all ad hoc, just trying to figure out what customers would pay for the platform. So some of them paid 50,000, some of them paid 75,000. So it was us getting to the pricing.
So I think that's really impressive. And I guess the question is, why step down what you could be making?
Yeah, I mean, for us, it was really about reaching more people within an organization and not going directly through the buyer. So we wanted to switch from sort of this sales top-down model to a bottom-up, let everyone make guides and let them have access to the platform faster. So that was really the decision. We saw that in the data too. So when we would sell to a buyer in an organization, they would then introduce us to other departments, and then those departments would introduce us to employees. So it really just came down to, how do we get the platform in the hands of a lot more people without having to go through a top-down sales model? So we switched to PLG.
Got it. So I think you're going to certainly get conflicting thoughts on this, but my personal advice would be, actually, I would probably continue those enterprise sales. One, you're finding success with it. Two, actually, every VC will ask you, what is your enterprise strategy? And one of the biggest sticking points actually is, for companies going bottoms up, a lot of VCs have skepticism around how can you actually go from like $100 a month, or in your case, $500 a month, to the big enterprise dollars. You've actually done that. And so I would actually continue that. It's not to say stop the self-serve, but I think that is actually a good proof point for you, because when you think about all of the top, any B2B company that's in the public markets, they all have a strong enterprise strategy. There are very, very few that, I can't even think of one that does not. So that's my advice. That goes with both fundraising as well as obviously bringing in larger cash into the business, larger amounts of cash into the business for you.
Yeah, and it makes sense. And so with our tiered pricing, that business tier is the call-us pricing. So we'll continue to service enterprise on a custom contract by contract, depending on the features they want. It's great feedback.
That's exactly what I mean. Like, don't anchor
Yeah.
at the 500. Like, it's the call us and we'll make up a number and try to charge you $500,000 if we can.
Right. That would be nice.
Yeah, I actually have some thoughts just very specific to fundraising. So this is really unique, and I do like it when I'm kind of forced to actually use the product actually, because it just like it says so much more actually than even just tell me versus just showing. The average amount of time that a prospective investor looks at our own fundraising deck is actually 2 minutes and 54 seconds. So I've actually talked to a lot of other people who use DocSend and these others, and I found that at least just standalone, looking at the deck all by itself, it's usually about 3 minutes. So that's just food for thought in terms of maybe shaping this down to about 3 minutes if and when you share this out for a more expanded fundraising. The other part too is I actually would have changed the order personally. If you've ever, I'm very biased towards this, but at the early stages, I think this is largely a bet on the potential of the team. And talking about the team up front is what I like to see, usually a slide one in a traditional deck. So a thought is maybe you can bring your impressive background of you and your co-founder towards the beginning. Say, hey, I'm Allison, this is my co-founder, and seeing if that could work in these kinds of pitches. So other than that, though, this is fun. I mean, we've never seen a pitch like this before. So definitely props on the uniqueness of this. It's going to actually, I think, be quite bifurcating. Some people are going to absolutely love it. And I was kind of on the end of like, yeah, this is like super cool. I dig this. And other people would be like, absolutely not. Just like, I need a deck. I'm like, traditional or something like that. It has to be a PowerPoint or whatever, even, So expect some of that. Yeah.
You mean the VCs will say that, or the founders? You mean either one?
I think the VCs, like specifically like venture capitalists. And it's in some ways a Rorschach test of like, well, do you want like mostly dudes who are like stuck in the 90s doing PowerPoint?
That's exactly right.
People, right? Or not. So I think it's also a feature, not bug. Yeah.
That's exactly right. And I think it puts founders on their 2 feet. We're not always in the driver's seat with a PowerPoint. So I think there's something about telling a story and having a narrative. And, I just think it gives founders a little bit of a leg up, which is positive.
Yeah, awesome. Well, I know that we have a number of people who are just joining us. We've been talking to Allison Kent. She's the founder of Guide, that's GIIDE. And if you caught some of the presentations and have a question, we'd love to maybe cycle up one or two if we have some time. Janelle, I don't know if there have been patterns of like a popular question related to Allison's pitch that you want to raise if one caught your eye.
One of the questions that is looking really interesting is, Allison, how would you say Guide is different from recording a Loom video?
Yeah, so what the main difference with Guide is that you can interact with the content. So it's an audio first experience, but anything in that feed can be saved, shared, or linked out to. So it's not passive. It's very much an active interaction with the content.
Okay, awesome. Thanks. We have a very discerning crowd. So there was some potential competition there. Okay, another question. If you had to summarize your mission they were giving you 8 to 9 words. So see if you can hit that limit. What would you say the mission of Guide is?
I think it's to empower creators to make better content.
Holy smokes, good job.
I think that's it. I think give people a tool that really matches how we consume content today versus something else.
Okay, awesome.
That's great. Why don't we do this and give huge claps to Allison for her super unique pitch. Allison, thank you so much for sharing Guide with us. Yeah, and if you don't mind sticking around, we may have some time for some Q&A at the very end. But next, we wanted to go to our second presenter for today, live from Uganda. I'm pleased to present Alan, the founder of Sente. Alan, are you there?
Yes, I am right here, Eric.
Hello, Alan. Thank you so much for being with us. I'm going to go ahead and share my screen. And whenever you're ready, please let me know. I'll start the timer for your 5 minutes.
I'm ready. Let's hit it.
Let's do it. Go ahead.
Okay. So hi, I'm Alan Rakatungu from Kampala, Uganda in East Africa. Super excited to be here and show you guys that you can build a world-class company from anywhere in the world. So Sente is a digital business account. Next, Eric. I'm doing this old school. So when we talk to businesses in Africa, specifically finance and accounting teams, 9 out of 10 are stuck in the 90s. They still use checks and cash on everyday business spend, paying teams, paying suppliers, basically operating spend, and they still do a lot of paperwork and legwork, because finance needs operations, wasting time and money. Next, Eric. So we've partnered with one of the largest payment processors in the world. We can't mention them because we've not been gotten regulatory approval yet, but their logo is right there, so you can check it out. To build a digital business account to automate payments and finance operations. Next. So here is how it works. If you know Breaks, if you know Ramp, it's the same thing. You give guys a virtual card or a physical card. They can configure policy and controls. They can approve and monitor transactions and view everything in real time. Next. We also live in a world in East Africa where the majority of people are unbanked. So we also connect to mobile money operators and give the same features that happen on the Visa side. Next, Eric. The critical piece here is the features that finance and accounting loves. Things like payment and approval workflows, expense policy configuration, real-time reporting, receipt scanning, team and supplier management, integration with CRMs. These are the things that make us stand out from the crowd. Next. We have customers today. You might not know these logos, but these are some of the biggest e-commerce companies in Africa, real estate companies, insurance companies, already customers of ours. Next, Eric. And we're a very, very ambitious team. We're not stopping just in Uganda. So currently we're live in Uganda, but we're setting the foundations to scale to 6 other countries in the next 15 months in partnership with the other guys that I showed you on the first slide. Next. And the most impressive thing about our startup is our unit economics. They just really make me smile. Our churn rates are super, super low, and our payback is less than 2 months. So our CAC, in the 3rd month, we're already making profit. So if we pour fuel on this rocket ship, we're building a really big business. Next. The business model is pretty simple. It's a free account, free software. We make money from card issuing and payment processing, as well as fees and commission. Next, Eric. The market size is huge. Every company spends. And we estimate that in Africa today, spend by businesses, mid-size and enterprise is about 500 billion a year. And if we save them 19% that they lose to low productivity errors and accounting, we can build an enormous business. Next, Eric. Here is our plan to become the #1 payments company targeting finance and accounting teams in Africa. 1, direct sales. We get them where they are through professional accounting institutes and finance companies, partnering with audit companies, and also partnering with vendors who these guys already buy from. And we've already partnered with Uber for Business, so guys are already paying using a card that we issue. Next. Here's what the competition looks like. There's a lot of guys on this side doing payment automation. The bottom right side with Expensify, I couldn't put NetSuite there. Sorry, Eric. Hardly exists in this market. But where we lie is on the payment and finance automation side. And that is our unique position in the market. The biggest competition really is the status quo of cash checks, the 1990s, basically. Next. We have a strong team. I'm a software developer myself. I've already built a startup that is top 3 in its category in Africa, my previous startup, in sports entertainment. My co-founder is young, but he closes some of the biggest deals. And Kenneth is a CFA, and he's the one who talks, all the financial jargon that we don't understand. Next.
And
So
now
why
we're
now?
gonna have you wrap up.
All right, last slide. Why now, why us? Accounts like us are, Breaks, Ramp, these are growing really fast, and Africa is wide open. Work from home, work anywhere, work remotely is on. We have access to world-class payment infrastructure, and we have the team. That's why you need to back us. Last slide. So we're looking for fuel to put into this rocket ship. Thank you.
All right, congratulations. Great job, Alan. That was an awesome pitch. Big claps for Alan. Please give him some love on the chat as well. He's a co-founder and CEO of Sente. So I'll turn it over to my colleague, Elizabeth. Do you want to start with the first question?
Yeah. Well, thanks a lot, Alan. I'm quite impressed by actually the number of customers you have already. I wanted to better understand, how do you see yourself going into more countries? You said you want to do 6 countries in the next 15 months, and I noticed some of them are even more competitive, such as the Nigerian landscape is, certainly has more players there. How do you think about that?
Good question, Elizabeth. The biggest hurdle actually is regulatory. Okay, yes. So we have to go through regulatory hurdles. So we want to start dealing with that now. And as the different regulators approve us at different timeframes, we're going live in the different countries. We're going in partnership with the largest payment processor in the world, and in partnership with one of the largest banks in Africa. So we have that tied up. So once we hook up the regulation and we're live, because that's going to take some time, so that we hit the ground rolling. As we get regulatory approval, we start acquiring customers.
This is probably going to be the biggest question and biggest piece of pushback you're going to receive from VCs, because the regulatory landscape is different in every country. And also VCs would like, of course, you to tackle all these countries. But yeah. I think the other question is, let's say that you can jump through that, which will take a while. How do you think about acquiring customers in each of these places? Like, do you see your go-to-market changing, or?
I think our go-to-market we're trying to build a same playbook for every country, and that is going through finance and accounting institutes and schools where basically they hang out, okay? Pitching them, and so when they go back to the office, they know about us. It is a very unique way of getting to the market. No one is doing it at the moment.
So I got a couple of comments here too, related to regulatory, not to beat up on this topic so much, but I think that fintech companies in Africa are among some of the most exciting for US investors to take a look at. I mean, there's just insane amounts of growth, and I think that it's arguably the most exciting emerging market actually today, just from the quality of the talent and like how large the population is and the ambition. But like what Elizabeth has cited, just to double click on this, is probably the top concern. Most US venture capitalists, at least those whom we might be pitching, don't have presence in Africa. At Hustle Fund, we actually have been doing some light investing in Africa, primarily with fintechs, because of our colleague Maria, who is from Nigeria, who's been helping us to guide that. So usually it comes down to, I think, 2 common questions I see. One is like, how do I gather enough data that the regulatory stuff is set, right? That like Alan and team, they're doing all the right things, and that it just feels relatively de-risked that if we invest in them, that they're going to be on the right path to just unblock this stuff. I think that's part one. Part two also is just this might actually not be as relevant for your use case, but some of the existing ecosystem infrastructures that we take for granted in the United States aren't quite applied in Africa. So for example, we have like credit unions in the United States, pretty much 3 that are considered like mostly like the trustworthy sources of trying to get a sense of individual creditworthiness, business creditworthiness. In Africa, it feels more fragmented. There is like, I think a Pan-African credit bureau, but it's not perceived to be as rigorous as in the US side. So on the underwriting part of it, it's just like, when you're working with teams and like other kinds of KYC, AML kind of concerns, like what is your team doing to sort of preempt those kinds of questions? So I'd say those are kind of like the 2 biases. It's not really a question for you. It's more of just like a bias I want to sort of call out there. Yeah,
absolutely. Understand that, Eric. Just one final comment. The regulatory issue is the biggest issue that we face. That is true. Okay.
Yeah.
What our advantage is, we already have in partnership with a big payment processor.
Yeah, I saw that. Oh shoot, did Alan just freeze up? Okay, we'll see if Alan can get back here. Although that is a great expression that he is frozen into. It is seems very much true to the personality that we're seeing today. The other question that I was going to ask Alan, and hopefully he will have a chance to get back here, is actually, if for those of you who are working in markets outside the United States, non-US markets, especially in fintech, one of the top questions that we usually ask when it comes to trying to understand the market is credit card penetration. So in the United States, or in parts of Europe, or in many parts of, I guess, of like Western world, like we just assume that everyone takes a credit card, right? But in some of these more emerging markets with the highest growth, credit card penetration is not actually that high. So that's an area of ignorance that I have as a US investor. So largely, when you're pitching a company that has something that actually is sort of presenting, I guess, a solution for a local market that's non-US, assume that like the sophistication of US investors is very low. Already it's pretty low if you're a VC, but it's even lower if you're going to be presenting something that's like, this is a fintech solution for Thailand or Malaysia or other kinds of places in the world that's non-US. So like, I think we need to be handheld a little bit sometimes on understanding these kinds of very, very basic questions. So if you're to, push me in the corner and say like, I'm not going to let you go until you tell me what the credit card penetration in Uganda is, I'd be like, I guess I'm going to be stuck here for a long time because I have no idea what this is. Elizabeth, I don't know if you have any other comments, I guess at a meta level, if it looks like we lost Alan, but we got his pitch at least. Yeah.
No, I'm back. Guess what happened?
Great.
We lost power. Power,
wow.
So it went out. So I'm sitting in darkness.
Yeah. Okay. Well, thanks for coming back.
Yeah.
I don't know if you caught our last question, but actually mine was more of a comment. Elizabeth, did you want to have a final question for Alan? I think we're not going to have time for the open Q&A for this portion just yet, but I'll leave you with a final question for him.
This is a larger point, I think, for anybody who is building for what I would call like an emerging market. So I think US investors are very interested these days, which is a change from maybe 2 years ago. That being said, I think the things you have to address for a US audience is, number one, if you are currently in a country that US investors consider small, and by small, just kind of look up the population. And if your population is, let's just say, under 70 million people, they will consider that to be small, even though you can obviously still build a big business, and you have a decision to make. Your decision to make is you go hard on your local country, you do it well, you know everything about it, if you're in a regulated area, you get all of that resolved, and you just win your country, and then you paint a story in your deck about how you're going to go after all these other countries. Or I think what is maybe more interesting to VCs, but a harder story to tell is, hey, we're going to go after all these other countries simultaneously. But then you have to really have a strong story about how you are well positioned to do it. And especially going into the bigger countries where there's a lot more competition in Africa, that may be Nigeria or Kenya or wherever, you have to have a really buttoned up story about how you know regulatory, or you're bringing on somebody who knows regulatory or something like that. I think your current traction is great. The piece that you need is like, how do you offer credibility about your expansion plans? And that goes for everyone. I'm not just ripping on Alan. Actually, I think I'm quite impressed with what Alan has done.
It was actually a very tight presentation today, Alan, and I think you did preempt a lot of those questions. And unfortunately, I think we are out of time for your session, but let's give big claps to Alan. He is the co-founder and CEO of Sente, probably one of the next big unicorns we should be tracking as well. So congratulations out there. And to round things off.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you, Alan. To round things off, we have one more amazing founder. It's going to be a hard act to follow, Audrey, but Audrey, are you there? Can you hear us?
Yes, I'm there. Hi.
Awesome. Full confidence in you. You're going to do great. Let me go ahead and share your presentation. Whenever you're ready, let me know and I'll start the timer.
Okay, I'm ready.
Do this.
I'm ready. Okay, so hi everyone. My name is Audrey Taylor Quinier, and I'm so excited to introduce you to the work that we're doing at Class Planet. Next slide. But before I do, I want you to take a second and think about when you were a student and you just had a teacher that seemed to have the secret sauce. When you were in their classroom, you felt individually seen and motivated, and even though learning was challenging, it was also really fun. Next slide. Well, actually, that secret sauce is called pedagogy. And pedagogy is teaching best practices that's informed by a lot of data, research, child development, psychology. And teachers learn about pedagogy and they use it to craft engaging lessons that spur student knowledge in the classroom. Next slide. But the problem is implementing all of these teaching best practices is extremely hard and time consuming. Teachers can spend up to 12 hours every week just planning lessons. And it still kind of ends up kind of like spaghetti where you throw it at the wall and hope it sticks to a student. Next slide. But with Class Planet, we use AI and data analytics to automate a lot of the decision-making process that goes into planning lessons. And we can generate personalized recommendations to teachers on engaging activities, worksheets, videos, etc., that are custom-made and tailored to the specific demographics of the students in their classroom. Next slide. So it's kind of like we've bottled this pedagogy secret sauce, and we can turn uninspired activities to activities that really motivate students to want to learn. Next. There's a $74 billion global edtech market, and $20 billion is spent annually just on education analytics alone. Next slide. And Class Planet has a wonderful business model that ranges from an individual teacher that just wants to improve their lesson planning and save time, all the way to a school district that wants a robust dashboard to track and improve lesson planning effectiveness across all of its teachers. Next slide. And for the school districts, using Class Planet will decrease teacher turnover and increase student performance. And the bottom line is that both of these things add more money to the school's budget at the end of the year. Next slide. Now, I know everyone is thinking there are a lot of really awesome lesson planning platforms out there. People can use just a Google Chrome document to make a Google Doc to make a lesson plan. But we're not just a lesson planning platform. Our unique selling point is the analytics and the recommendations that we provide to teachers. And using our APIs and our Google Chrome extensions, teachers can access all of this wonderful analytics, recommendations, and tracking while still using whatever lesson planning platform they now use and love. Next slide. A little bit about myself. I'm a third-generation educator with over 15 years experience teaching on 3 different continents. A decade ago, I also started a low-cost private school in Southern Africa, and I hired and trained dozens of teachers. I saw firsthand how difficult it was for the teachers to create engaging ways to introduce new material to students day in and day out. And something that is so integral to the academic success of all of our students shouldn't be so difficult for teachers to implement in the classroom. So with growing frustration, I stepped down as director of my private school in 2018. I relocated to Austin, Texas, and I went on the journey of learning how to code. I learned Python, AI, and machine learning modeling, and I actually wanted to build the solution to the problem I face as a teacher and the problem I saw all of my colleagues face as educators as well. Next slide. So Class Planet is definitely a platform. Planet is definitely a platform that's built for teachers by teachers. Since launching our wait list at the beginning of July, we have 30 teachers in Texas registered to start at the beginning of August. And we plan on launching the second week of August for K-12 teachers in Texas classrooms. We also have 2 teaching colleges in Texas that want to onboard their student teachers in the fall. So as the student teachers are learning about pedagogy, they'll be using Class Planet to practice in a practical setting. Next slide. And so we're raising $600,000 in seed funding, which will allow me to make some key hires and allow us to acquire a large part of this market share for K-12 Texas teachers over the next 18 to 24 months. And that is Class Planet in a nutshell. Thank you so much to the Hustle Fund team for allowing me to present, and I look forward to any comments or questions that you have at this time.
Fantastic. Thank you so much. And very smooth work, by the way, with my terrible internet, which is, something to look out for these Zoom meetings sometimes. Big claps to Audrey. Great job with Class Planet. She's the founder and CEO of Class Planet. So Elizabeth, I'm going to pick on you per usual. Do you have any questions that you would like to start off with for Audrey?
Yeah, great job, Audrey. I think that, obviously your domain experience tied with the opportunity is a great fit. And people often talk about founder opportunity fit. This definitely is it. I think the number one thing that I would pick at this, and you know better than I, having, started a school and being an educator, I think one of the things that I hate personally about how our education is in the US is there's just really not a whole lot of money. And that the money is largely tied to improvements in test scores and things like that. And so I think my question to you then is like, how do you get at some of those budgets? It almost seems like you have to use this to prove that, yes, this can improve those test scores, and therefore that is why people should buy this. How do you kind of make that tie in and get there?
That is a wonderful question, Elizabeth, and there's a lot of nuance to all of that, so I will try to be brief. The first thing that I would add is that I would say is that the school district's ideas around education software for teacher is changing. I believe over the last couple of years, they realized that teachers need more autonomy in deciding what software they need for their classroom. So school districts are giving pockets of money to schools or even to individual teachers to have more autonomy over the solutions that they use in the classroom, so that long sales cycle that we normally know as far as selling into schools is a little bit different. There are studies that shown that 2 out of 3 teachers are willing to pay a monthly fee if it means saving them time and improving the work that they're doing. So we see this as an individual teacher the same as a content creator paying for a Grammarly subscription that would help them with their writing. So there is studies that show that teachers are willing to do that if they are able to see the benefit of it. And then lastly, proving that it works. One of the great things that I like about what Class Planet is doing is like, we're not reinventing the wheel. We're not trying to create a new way to make lesson plans and trying to prove that it works. We're actually taking decades of best practices from Bloom's taxonomy to multiple intelligence theory, et cetera, et cetera. We're taking all of these proven concepts that teachers know and love and school districts want to encourage teachers to use on a daily basis. We're just allowing that process to be automated and a little bit smoother. So we don't have to convince them that they work. They know that the best teaching techniques work.
Thank you. And I think my second question, if I have the time, Eric, is based on that, which is actually very heartening to hear, how do you see the go-to-market to get to these teachers?
Yeah, so it's also a very, very great question. So with teachers, the studies have shown, even though schools or school districts are the ones that pay, they don't do that without a lot of teacher buy-in. They don't want to force teachers to pay for software, or they don't want to pay for software and force teachers to use it. So what studies have shown is if you can get 4 to 5 teachers in a school to use a platform, that school is 80% more likely to invest in the software for all of its teachers. So we're definitely looking at localized flywheels where we're able to get one teacher to be an advocate, and then they invite their colleagues, because lesson planning is already a collaborative effort. Most teachers share lesson resources. So we see localized flywheels happening within small schools and districts, and then growing from there. That's why we're focusing on Texas and trying to really make some impact there before we expand to other states.
I like that a lot. And so just as a quick comment, sorry, Eric. So building on these two questions, then I think it might be worthwhile, because, VCs are we're laggards in our knowledge and don't know much anyway. So what you just told me was actually fairly illuminating. Like, I would say sort of why now, or like, why is the right timing, is sort of this change in how things are sold essentially to schools. It's no longer you have to necessarily go through the long district cycles and all that. We're almost reverting back to how things were in the 80s, or when they sold software to individual teachers. And I think that's actually a key piece of information. Thank you. Great job.
Thank you, Elizabeth.
I just have one comment for you, and I want to make sure that we respect some of the time to bring some other folks on to have their questions as well. So there's this theory that was bandied about among VCs during the pandemic, which is called Antifragility, which is this notion that even during times of unique economic or social duress, certain kinds of business models get strengthened. And that's actually that was kind of running through my mind here, which is maybe also highlighting more clearly what COVID does to impact your business. My take on it is that so as a parent of 2 young kids, I'm actually sort of preparing for the idea that they actually may not go back to school if Delta variant gets really bad as of August 3rd, 2021. But if that's the case, then, when I think about great pedagogy, I think about my teacher, Mrs. Squires, in 2nd grade, and she hugged me a lot. And I really love to learn to read because of her. And Mrs. Squires, if you're watching, thank you so much for what you've done to my life. In the absence of being able to have that kind of experience, then I think great lesson planning, customization, feeling seen teachers are going to have to just figure out how to do that online even better. So there's no real question embedded in that, but it just feels like with either COVID there or not there, there is a way for this business to succeed, but there might even be a case to be made that if COVID sticks around, this is an even more powerful use case. I want to just see if you have any reactions to that. That wasn't really a clear question though.
No, Eric, what you're saying is so true, and it's so insightful, because you have to think about it. Before COVID, students were in the classroom, teachers kind of followed the same kind of outline of what they're going to teach year after year. So there was some predictability on what students knew. So if a student went from 3rd grade to 4th grade, the 4th grade teacher kind of knew what the 3rd grade teacher taught. But COVID has completely changed that. When teachers come to whatever form it is for this year, they're going to have to look at each student individually and say, where are you? What do you know? What don't you know? Where are your learning gaps? And let's just try to make it work and fill it in. So this will be the first time this will be a time where teachers are more readily looking at, how do I identify and assess the learning styles, the learning levels, the retention rates of every student, and how do I figure out how to address them? And that's what Class Planet does. There's so much happening right now in education, talking about how do we fill learning gaps? How do we identify the learning gaps? And how do we identify the best way to address students, even if it's virtually? So Class Planet does that. And there's really not a lot of platforms that allow teachers to do that in a seamless way.
Great response. Janelle, can we try to sneak in one question at least for Audrey from the audience if we saw something popping up?
Yeah, Audrey, there was a lot of chatter. I hope you can take the chance to go back and look. A lot of praise for your product, what you're doing, and also how you've been able to juggle so many things as a teacher. Okay, so one question that pops up is, have you thought about using this for universities or higher education? And maybe we expand that question, and what sort of expansion of the product do you see down the road?
Yeah, there's definitely a lot of different methods, a lot of different ways to use Class Planet. Right now, because of these teaching best practices that are really geared towards K-12, but there's a lot of content aggregation and generation that can come from, even if you wanted to teach, like what is yoga, we could actually develop a very robust kind of lesson plan and activities and resources to teach you what is yoga. So there is a lot of application for not just K-12, but you can think about just content creators making their own, courses online, or businesses wanting to teach their new hires, like how do we do marketing. So there's a lot of different ways. We're just aggregating information and presenting it in ways where it would engage whoever the student is at the time, and gauge how well they retain the information that was presented to them.
Thank you. Well, okay, I think that's the time that we have with Audrey, founder and CEO of Class Planet. Let's give her some big claps on the chat. Great job. And so at this point, we have about, call it 8-9 minutes left here. Janelle, have you seen any questions that popped up that felt compelling, either to one of our presenters, from me and Elizabeth? What's popping up on the Q&A that would be good to chat about?
Yeah, so there was a general question for you and Elizabeth that I thought would be interesting to talk about. This came from a founder who is a solo founder. I'm not sure what stage of the product. This is from Michael Wallace. Michael is wondering, what questions would the solo founder likely face from the Hustle Fund team?
That's really interesting, because I don't think I recall ever asking any special questions just because you're a solo founder. Now, I will say that the vast majority of teams that we backed usually feature a co-founder team. Having a co-founder is great. I have some now, and I've been a solo founder before, and I just feel like from a mental health perspective, it's really nice to have people who are in it with me with the same level of skin in the game. But I don't think that's ever really been a blocker for us personally. Elizabeth, do you have any thoughts on solo founder questions or biases?
No, we don't ask any different questions. I think if the question is, what questions do we ask? Actually, there's this Google Doc with a whole comprehensive list of questions that we could ask. And so maybe we can share that resource out later.
Yeah, I will say this, though. It's a fair point, Michael, is I have heard of some funds that are biased against solo founders. And I think largely it's implicit because of the mental health aspects of it. It's very, very heavy burden, to be the only person at the top, not being able to speak with a peer to solve these problems. But that said, it happens a lot too. So there's no bias at Hustle Fund, at least, but I can't speak for everyone. Janelle, do we have some more questions that might be good to chat through?
Yeah, another one just about this state of investing in the pre-seed seed world. Do you, and this can go to both of you, Eric and Elizabeth, do you feel like it's growing or slowing? Is the focus on enterprise B2B SaaS? Is it becoming more localized? How do you dig into this one?
I'll take a crack at it. So first off, prefacing, it's always hard to fundraise, regardless of what market you're in, regardless of who you are. Getting going is always hard because investors are inundated with pitches. And so how do you get yourself prioritized? That being said, I would say that the market in general is quite good for fundraising because there are a lot of different sources of capital that didn't necessarily exist 2 years ago. You have certainly VCs, but you also have the rise of the angel investor, like AngelList, has spawned on a lot of new funding sources. You have Republic for crowdfunding. So there are just a lot of people now investing in general in a way that, they didn't before. And also because of COVID, people are more interested in investing literally anywhere and everywhere. I think before geography was a disadvantage for many people. Now we're just all on Zoom all the time. And so I think that's way less of an issue. So that's one thought. That being said, I think the confusing thing is everyone's definition around what is pre-seed or seed or whatever you want to call it is like literally all over the place. Like to me, a pre-seed round is probably like 250K, maybe $500,000, maybe if you really stretched it, $1 million. But I'm seeing people call like a $5 million raise a pre-seed round. So, definitionally, everyone's kind of all over the place. So I think it actually requires more homework on the part of the founder, like to figure out, okay, what is an investor really investing in? Because what they say they're investing in may not really jive with your definition.
I'll just underscore one point here, which is that Elizabeth's right. You should prepare for a really difficult fundraise, regardless of market conditions, even if it's perceived to be kind of frothy right now. The second, though, is just like also know that your success of your business, your ability to operate, to build something that's incredibly huge, doesn't necessarily correlate to how easy it is to fundraise. In fact, the very best companies, we believe, look totally non-obvious, have non-obvious founders. If you're not a white or Asian man who went to Stanford University and lives in Silicon Valley, it's going to be harder, at least to raise from a US VC. And that's actually a bias that we're really trying to fight here, because I think everyone in this audience realizes the same thing that we realize, that great hustlers look like anyone and come from anywhere. So it could be hard, it could be difficult, but by no means should you find self-validation just because you can raise money or not from Silicon Valley VCs. Sometimes it's just talking to your dentist or like the rich neighbor like down the street to get going, and then you just got to prove it through the work, right? So I feel you on that. So I can feel really discouraged sometimes as a founder if I'm way outside Silicon Valley, way outside the trope of what a founder should look like. And it's hard, but by no means does that mean that your business is poor. Janelle, do we have some more? Maybe we can take one or two more?
Yeah, sure. That sounds like a great idea. So I'm going to go back to a question for Alan from earlier, which he answered in the chat, but wanted to give him a chance to chat about it live. So Alan, this one's for you. In your business model, in the cash-based economies, how do you on-ramp your customers, and how do you move businesses to your platform?
Yeah, that was a good question. And we are educating the market, unfortunately or fortunately, because we have to go to them and say, hey, what you're using now is not the right way to do it. You should do it this way. We're using a problem-led approach. We've actually got training on that to tell them what the problem is, how much it is costing them, and showing them a clear picture of why they need to move to a digital platform like Sente. It's not easy, but I think it's working.
Okay.
All right, Janelle, maybe we could sneak in one more question.
Last one for Eric and Elizabeth. Are there deals happening at the pre-seed seed levels in COVID where markets have been affected, like travel and food? How is the current landscape for fundraising in those markets?
I guess I'll take a crack at that one. I think the timing right now is actually, frankly speaking, pretty good for a lot of markets. I think, call it 6 to 12 months ago, that may not have been the case for, let's say, travel or restaurant tech or whatever. But I don't know if I would necessarily say there's more funding going into these areas, but I think that now is actually, frankly speaking, just a great time in pretty much any market that I can think of.
We're back, I think.
I hope. At least that's how the investors are looking at it.
Yeah, I think so too. Well, with that, I think we're gonna wrap up today's session. I'm gonna go ahead and just, again, please, like in the chat, can you send some love to Allison, founder and CEO of Guide, Alan, founder and CEO of Sente, and Audrey, founder and CEO of Class Planet. They did such a fantastic job today. The three of you, thank you so much for sharing your stories with us and listening to some of the feedback that you got today. And also, lastly, big shout to NetSuite for sponsoring today's session. And of course, to all of you for attending. I know that there's a little bit of a technical hiccup in the beginning to get you on, but it was so great that many of you were able to hop on, listen to these awesome pitches, and be inspired, I hope, by these great founders. Thank you all so much. Please stay safe out there, and we'll see you at the next session. All the best, everyone.